It's anti-rich, anti-war, and anti-U.S. empire. I'm still caught in that ha-ha moment when I read the text the first time and went to the priest and said, hey, Father Jack, Father Bob, I'm reading this stuff. Nobody seems to follow this stuff. And they said, yeah, that's a problem. That was the best answer they could give. And it was honest. You don't always get honesty from your clergy about things that matter. On why you would go to a priest to talk about sex makes no sense to me. Just say it, folks. Been on the other side, makes no sense. Nothing against them, whatever. They got other issues, but I would not, that doesn't make sense. Okay, sorry. Oh, I'm so cheap.
May we ask you questions?
Sure.
So when you were talking about how you're against the death penalty, is that against also like abortion, stuff like that? What are your stances on that?
I'm against abortion, but I've never outlawed anybody. I'm an anarchist. I'm more against the criminal justice system than I am against. I think abortion ought to be a woman's choice. Got that? Now, you're asking me, is it a good choice or a bad choice? For me, I really can't say. I think the person who's got the baby's got to say.
How about the father involved?
Yeah, how about the father involved?
It's half of his.
No, you don't understand how it works.
It's in her body.
Yeah.
Boom!
You don't have
Where to go after that? So we get a little spurt, a little sweat. Doesn't mean we don't love, equal, doesn't mean we can't absolutely embrace each other and continue this walk together. But in the raw terms of our nuclear family, individual freedom, and the way we play it, I'm not really nice, but that's how it's done. Every culture has its downsides. A man can just walk away from this and not be responsible. Do I get an amen here?
Yeah.
Okay, now we're in a culture that we're talking about, not an abstraction, and really, now I'm a disciple. So if a fellow disciple comes to me with a problem, I will ask them this question. I'm not going to tell you how to answer your problem, but when you do your answer, will that make you more a disciple of Jesus and help you go down the road or not? Because that's the moral question in my book, the book I want to follow. Does that follow the kingdom stuff? And there's a lot of blurry area here. I'm not an expert on anything, but this book says, read your heart, love with integrity, resist empire, don't bow to wealth, and be the kingdom of God you say you want to see. Because that's what you're praying for when you pray the Our Father. And that can be done in any country, at any time, anywhere. And I'm just suggesting that it's not being done here well at all. All right, the other place, Eucharist. I'm big in the Eucharist because there's another place where the Eucharist is identified in the New Testament as happening. It's with St. Paul. And he says, he has an issue with the Corinthians or whatever. I can't remember the book. I wish Protestants know these verses, but I know the stories. Paul is trying to correct something in this community that celebrates the Eucharist. And he says, and you are standing against the spirit of the Eucharist that says, when you break this bread, bless it, pass it, do this in memory of me. You are shaming. He was saying you're shaming this text and what's going on. Oh my goodness. So what is the issue that has Paul reciting the holy words of the canon saying you are shaming these words when you do this? Well, apparently back then, everybody brought their own food to the table, and the rich brought a lot for themselves and didn't share it with the poor. And Paul says, eat your own food at your own house. If you're not gonna share with the poor, curse on your house, and that's Eucharist will be a curse to you. I'm not making this up. It's in the New Testament. It is the very first time the words, do this in the memory, break, this is my body, is written. And why do I say it's the first time? Well, the Gospels have it there, but they were all written after the temple was destroyed. Paul's writings all happened before the temple was destroyed. God, folks, you gotta know the timeline. Everybody know where Paul died, history tells us? Or, so, yeah, anybody know where he died? 65 AD, Nero, persecuting the Christians. Paul got his head chopped off and Peter got hung upside down. You know, this is the beauty of this. I'm not doubting these guys didn't get rounded up and killed then. But you know why? Nero wanted more property next to his imperial grounds. And on this hill was a slum that he wanted to take. So he started a fire, killed thousands of people, went out to the people and said, who do you like the least? And they all said, we don't like the Christians. Great, round up the Christians, blame them, hang their leaders. I'm not lying. This is how history, modern history, go back there and find out what fires happened. Look, 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 look. Indeed, it was a fire. But did they die for their faith? No, they died for a real estate scam. Imperial went out there and said, who did you like the least? And they said, these Christians, they're terrible. I don't know what to say. That's what's documented about the fire that we say that those two guys died. I'm not making it up. And I don't blame, sure, why not? Life was dangerous then. Being a Christian was dangerous. They didn't leave much of a mark except what they wrote. No synagogue, no wealth.
What's your opinion on I know a lot of people who have the stance that even today in our modern world, Christians are very persecuted.
I just laugh. No, I'm not saying Christians are not persecuted. But every baptized person who goes to that drone command center in Des Moines, and they are spotting so-called enemies and targets. One year, when we were doing the protest there, one year they put 70,000 hours into scouring the planet in the Middle East to find a bad guy. And they hit about over 300 targets they found. This is right here on the south side of Des Moines. And in a 1 year period, the Drone Command Center here in Iowa was given permission like 18 times to have kinetic connection. Anybody want to know what a kinetic connection is? You find the target, you get to kill them with your rocket. Yeah, that's it. The same thing, you're videoing them, you can shoot a rocket from. Or the president in the White House could say, tell the sniper, take them out. Because that's what that technology allows. A killing machine right here in Des Moines. Can't get any interest. Oh yeah, man, they're what are we talking about? What was we talking about? I get always thrown away when I think about war crimes and what we do on a daily basis. And I'll just say agriculture is war on the planet when we're not at war. I mean, any organized human thing in my lifetime, even if it's to feed the world, that pisses off half of the soil God gave us to live on, and then what's left is just dead, and the water is poisonous. And, we keep putting in this oil-based stuff to feed pigs and cows, and we're kidding ourselves. That's a war on the planet. Yes.
You're saying half the soil, isn't that just because of erosion?
The way you get erosion
Or-
is how you treat the topsoil. And before there was modern farming, these were plains. They were grass. There were things here that, there was nothing like, well, erosion happened. I mean, the glaciers, I mean, they do, erosion happens, but, it wasn't threatening the topsoil. And in fact, the native, we call it native, I don't know where the damn, what were they, buffalo? That's right, buffalo.
Indigenous?
Wherever they came from, they hung around Iowa in the Middle East for fucking centuries, long time. Because it's their shit and their poop. And they're going from one place to another that created the topsoil. Really, I'm not lying here. Now, we can reproduce that. I have Catholic worker farmers who are reproducing that kind of shit to rebuild their soil base. And the way they do it is, they don't have their pigs or cows for meat. They have them for their shit in their food. And they move them around. I'm not, they got 4 or 5, I mean, they gotta go out and see it, but that's the kind of agriculture we should be, that's more closer to the native thing that I'm talking about here. But the way we do agriculture here, we might as well, you wanna know the biblical story? Joseph, I love this. Joseph, I know the many-coated Joseph guy, great story. Guy had a tough time in his family, wasn't well liked, was a special kid. So they sold him off from slavery into Egypt. Okay, so he had to make good. So he used his powers of interpreting dreams to get his ass out of jail. Very impressive. Got in favor with the Pharaoh. Hey, who's gonna blame a Jewish guy making good? I mean, why not? And the Pharaoh says, explain this dream. You guys know this dream? This is so cool. Here's this dream. The Pharaoh said, got this dream. I mean, 7 years where my barns are full and my cattle are fed. And then another 7 years and there's a famine on the land and everything dies. Tell me, Joseph, what does that mean? Joseph said, well, this is what it means. I'm gonna have 7 good years, then 7 bad. What should I do? Joseph says, well, in the 7 good years, pile up it all into barns. Get it up into those shelters. And then, when the 7 bad years come, you'll be the place where the people have to come to get their food. They'll first sell off their livestock to you. Then they'll sell off their land and beg you to let them stay on. And you will feed the people, and in the end, you will be the owner of the world. I'm not lying here, people. That was the plan. My generation in Iowa lived that reality. When I was born, there was a decentralized way of growing food here, grocery stores. It wasn't pretty. No one wanted to be on the farm. I was raised in the city. But nonetheless, there was a really family-based agricultural scene going. Family meaning family units, mom, pa, everybody, that sort of thing. And then it's just been Russian roulette, winner take all. And now what's left is the winners who, survived the deluge, and they're feeding millions. Agriculture, agribusiness is the people who are making the money. The people who are working the soil, whether they own the land or not, have no control. Really. Where you're gonna go with your soil, with your beans and your soybeans and your corn, and there's no other way to go. And that's how we use the land. We're at the point where the Pharaoh, the 14-year day is over and they got all the land. They got all the power. And none of us know how to grow an apple. Our apples grown, they're on trees. See?
I got an apple tree in my backyard.
Cool,
We have apple trees at our ranch.
wonderful.
Crab apples or apple apples?
So I'm what's hopeful for me, what's hopeful is I really do, of course, I'm hopelessly Christian, so I really do believe Jesus is worth following. I think it's worth living a life of hospitality and community to create human space and to create some integrity on how to live in this country. Because the thing that's gonna be the hardest thing is to find human space, authentic human space. If this text says anything, human space is done in hospitality. People serving each other, giving and receiving. And the more we learn to do that in real space, the more time humanity will have to catch on what needs to get done. Because really, we're becoming so heartless and inhuman simply by getting up in the morning, starting my coffee, putting my clothes on. By the time I did that, came in contact with third world people, people all over the planet whom we are not in a good relationship with. And my Bible says we should be in good relationships with everybody and everything. I mean, in the first century, that was kind of like, wow, noble, aspiring, blah, blah, blah. But just the idea, in Jesus' world, you got to be in right relationship with everything. Well, I'm a modern person now. I know that everything that contributes to my life is a system, a process that's very, very small. In fact, anything that matters for human beings is like in a 53 or 55 mile radius of an atmosphere and ground on this dead planet, or well, might as well be dead to us. Doesn't really matter, but life itself, like you, me, and the cockroaches have a lot in common here, people. We have a lot of interest together because we're processes all put together, and we got to be in right relationship. And human beings are called to be in right relationship. I can't think of a better ethic for the modern time with our modern systems and the way in which we interface with the planet. To say we've got to be in a right relationship where we're not killing ourselves. The Pharaoh was not in right relationship after following Joseph's dictates or advice. I think that's what the New Testament calls us to. And that, I don't think, that's in sync with the natives? Absolutely. And any other good faith that's worth a damn.
All right, Frank, do you have any lasting impressions?
You know, bullshit talks and bullshit rise, and I talk, and if anything I said worked an interest to get you over to the house and just experience it, just come and volunteer for a shift, that'd be just great. Really, that's my highest expectation is, somebody will come out of this crowd that might be interested to see what we do. Other than that, I did like to entertain, and I hope I didn't offend anybody.
I liked what you said about it's a woman's choice. I like that.
About?
When you talked about how it's a woman's choice.
Oh, yeah. I can feel that. I can feel that. There's no question about why women feel that way. The way we present ourselves sexually, culturally, is really a problem. But in defense of the first century, they didn't do it well either. Only their points of reference were a lot different than ours. I mean, because they were households, and nobody really cared whether a peasant had kids or not. But if you're at the top of a household and you've got kids, that's a big deal, because it's not just that you got a kid and that's great, like everybody wants to share, but your kid is going to be the inheritor of this and that, and there was politics involved. Oh my God. And if you're a slave and you have kids, then you're really not your kids because you have to give them up. I mean, there are lots of ways in which having kids was really bastardized. And when Jesus says, you know, he brings the little kids, bring little kids, makes them the center of his life. He's talking to a culture that didn't really value kids much, the first century. Unless you were rich in the first, you had some ranking. There's no lie. I'm just saying that's the way it worked. And there was a ranking in everything. And if you sense that there's a ranking now, I'm with you, man, because I do think that human beings, when they are obsessed with wealth, war,